The days that followed Lena's identity revelation were tense. Every corridor felt like a gauntlet, every floating classroom a stage where eyes followed her every move. Yet Lena was no longer paralyzed by fear. She had decided that invisibility was a comfort she could no longer afford. Now she would face the Academy of Celestia on her own terms. Professor Xylar, the luminescent alien who had revealed her records, summoned her for a private meeting. The office floated high above the main campus, a sphere of glass and light filled with artifacts from countless worlds. Stars shimmered through the translucent walls, and the soft hum of energy fields created an almost meditative atmosphere. "Lena," Xylar began, his voice calm and even, "your record is remarkable. Your parents' contributions to human diplomacy are well known, but you have abilities and insights that even your parents may not have expected. Here, these qualities can be used to benefit the Academy, and perhaps even the galaxy." Lena hesitated. She had never sought recognition. Her life had been about staying hidden, avoiding the attention that might bring danger. Yet she felt a spark of pride. Her parents' legacy, her humanity, and her own skills, all of them mattered more than she had realized. I don't know if I'm ready," she said quietly. "Readiness is a choice, Lena. Inaction can be more dangerous than exposure," Xylar replied. His gaze seemed to pierce through her, not judging, but seeing her potential. When Lena left the office, Kale was waiting. He had observed her cautious exit and approached with his usual analytical calm. "You see," he said, "they do recognize you. And it's not just curiosity. You are important, more than you think." Together, they began investigating the interstellar trial that Xylar had hinted at. Lena discovered that it was more than a competition of strength or intellect. The trial was designed to test judgment, adaptability, and courage under pressure, qualities humans often excelled at precisely because they were rare in the Academy's alien-dominated environment. "Humans are underestimated," Kyle said as they walked through a quiet corridor. "Most think we rely on alien traits, but strategy and reasoning can outmatch raw power. You just need to find your approach." Lena nodded. She felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. The trial would force her out of the shadows, but it also offered an opportunity to prove herself, not to anyone else, but to herself. The first challenge was announced in the Grand Hall. Students from every world gathered, their forms and abilities diverse and intimidating. Lena's heart pounded as she realized that being invisible was impossible now. Eyes were on her. Whispers floated through the crowd, and even those who had ignored her before were watching. The challenge was deceptively simple on the surface. Students were placed in a simulated alien environment and tasked with retrieving a crystalline artifact. However, the environment was filled with traps, puzzles, and alien creatures designed to test intellect, agility, and decision-making. Most students relied on their physical or elemental abilities to advance. Lena knew she could not compete in the same way. Her advantage lay in observation, reasoning, and ingenuity. Kale approached her before the start. "Remember, Lena, think like a strategist. Look for patterns, anticipate reactions. The environment is the same for everyone. What changes is how you use it." The trial began. Students surged forward, some flying, others using telekinesis or elemental powers. Lena stayed back, analyzing the layout, the traps, and the creatures. She noticed patterns that others overlooked, small visual cues, the way the creatures responded to noise, and the subtle shifts in the holographic projections. Using her observations, Lena devised a path through the environment that allowed her to move quickly and safely. She avoided direct confrontation, used clever decoys, and manipulated the environment to her advantage. By the time the other students reached the final chamber, Lena was already there, artifact in hand. Her success did not go unnoticed. Professor Xylar's eyes glowed faintly with approval, and Kale gave her a subtle nod of respect. Lena realized that her invisibility had not made her weak. It had trained her to notice, to analyze, and to adapt. The skills she had used to survive quietly were now her greatest strength. The next challenges were even harder. Students were required to form alliances, negotiate with alien factions, and make split-second decisions under pressure. Lena found herself at the center of attention more than she had ever imagined. She had to interact, persuade, and collaborate. Each time she relied on her reasoning, empathy, and ability to anticipate outcomes, qualities that no alien power could replicate perfectly. Kale remained her ally, often providing tactical insights that complemented Lena's human intuition. Together, they became a team that others began to notice. Whispers of admiration replaced curiosity, and even students who had doubted her abilities began to approach for guidance. Lena's identity, once a source of fear, had become a symbol of unexpected competence. Midway through the trial, Lena uncovered a hidden component of the competition. Her parents' coded messages had hinted at this, a secret scenario that could determine the outcome if understood and approached correctly. While others relied on raw power or speed, Lena deciphered the codes and identified the hidden objective. This gave her not just an advantage but control over the narrative of the trial itself. The final challenge required facing a complex simulation of interstellar conflict. Students had to navigate political tensions, manage resources, and prevent a catastrophic event, all in real time. Lena's ability to remain calm, analyze information, and act decisively made her a standout. Kale coordinated with her, applying his strategic mindset to complement her intuitive human approach. When the simulation ended, Lena had not only succeeded, but had outperformed nearly every other student. The Academy's leadership, who had once been skeptical of her quiet human presence, now recognized her as exceptional. Professor Zylar addressed the gathered students. Lena's performance demonstrates that visibility is not always about being seen. True strength lies in the mind, the courage to act, and the wisdom to anticipate outcomes. She reminds us that humans, though rare, can excel in ways we sometimes underestimate. Lena felt a mixture of relief and pride. For the first time, she did not want to hide. Her identity, once a secret she feared, was now an emblem of her capability. She had transformed from an invisible student into a force that could influence outcomes and inspire others. The Academy, once a place she tried to navigate quietly, had become a stage for her courage, intellect, and humanity. The whispers that followed her were no longer of suspicion but of respect. Kale, who had observed her growth, gave a small smile.
You see, Lena?
Being seen isn't weakness. It's your power. By the end of the trial, Lena understood that invisibility had been a necessary phase of preparation. She had learned to observe, adapt, and think ahead. Now she was ready to step fully into the Academy's world, not as a shadow, but as someone whose humanity and intelligence could make a difference in a galaxy full of diversity and challenges. Her parents' warnings, the hidden codes, and the initial fear of exposure had all led to this moment. Lena had faced the choice between hiding and being seen, and in choosing to act, she discovered her true strength. And so, the Academy of Celestia was no longer just a place to study. It was a proving ground, a platform, and a reminder that even in a universe dominated by extraordinary beings, the courage, intelligence, and adaptability of a human could shine brighter than any alien power. Lena had learned the ultimate lesson. Sometimes, hiding is necessary for survival, but stepping forward is necessary for greatness. Lena had always believed that the best way to survive at the Academy of Celestia was to remain invisible. Unlike most students, she had no flashy powers, no alien heritage, and no family prestige to rely on. She was human, one of the few left in a school that thrived on interstellar diversity. Humans were rare here, and that rarity often drew attention. Lena wanted none of it. The Academy itself was a marvel of the galaxy. Floating classrooms hovered above endless corridors. Walls shimmered with shifting holograms and stairways twisted in impossible directions. Students from hundreds of worlds studied together, their abilities and appearances as diverse as the stars themselves. Some had wings, some had scales, and some could shift their forms at will. Lena had none of these. She was ordinary in every way that mattered to the alien eye. Her invisibility was simple. She wore muted colors, avoided eye contact, and spoke only when necessary. She never joined group activities unless forced, and she always chose the backmost seat in any classroom. When the other students laughed or shouted, Lena melted into the shadows. By keeping quiet and unnoticed, she had learned to navigate the Academy without drawing attention. But Lena's life of quiet anonymity was not just a personal choice. It was a precaution. Her parents had left strict instructions. Her identity had to remain hidden. Years ago, they had clashed with the Academy's governing council over human representation in interstellar politics. They feared that if Lena's presence were known, she might be caught in disputes she did not understand, a pawn in a galaxy of schemers. So far, The plan had worked perfectly. Until today. The lecture hall was vast, a glowing sphere suspended in midair. Lena settled into her usual spot at the back, quietly pulling her books close. The topic for the day was galactic history, and the Professor Xylar was a tall, luminescent alien whose skin reflected the colors of distant nebulas. His voice was soft but resonant, filling the chamber with stories of wars, alliances, and discoveries across the universe. "Roll call," Professor Xylar announced. "Let us begin by confirming attendance." Lena stiffened. Roll call was dangerous. It was the one time when student records were accessed directly, when the system could reveal everything about a person. She had prayed for a simple error, or for the professor to call only a few names. The holographic list floated before Xylar as he began scanning names. Each student's identity flashed briefly, projected in a glowing 3D profile. Lena's heart pounded as her name neared the top. She had been counting on being overlooked, on the fact that the system might not recognize her completely, but luck was not on her side. "Lena," Xylar said, his voice calm but firm. The projection flickered and glowed. Her name appeared along with a detailed record, her parents' history, their political ties, and even her unique human abilities. Rare, powerful, and potentially valuable. The system processed her identity automatically, highlighting connections that Lena had spent years trying to hide. She froze. The lecture hall felt suddenly colder. Students whispered to each other, some glancing at her out of curiosity, others shrugging as if not caring. But Lena could feel their eyes. Her careful invisibility was gone. Kale, an alien strategist from a planet known for its sharp minds and even sharper instincts, leaned forward from a nearby seat. His eyes narrowed as he watched the holographic display. "Interesting," he murmured, barely audible. "Very interesting." Lena didn't notice him, her mind racing. She could either flee and risk being labeled a fugitive, or face the scrutiny head-on. Running might seem logical, but in the academy it would mark her as suspicious. Exposure could lead to investigations, forced alliances, or worse. She had no choice but to confront this. "Thank you for being present, Lena," Xylar said, his voice as smooth as flowing water. "We will discuss your record in detail after class." After the lecture, whispers followed her down the halls. Some students were curious, some cautious, and some openly skeptical. Lena's pulse raced. She had thought the academy was a neutral place where merit mattered more than heritage or politics. Now she realized that being human made her different, and different could be dangerous. For the next few days, Lena moved carefully. She avoided large gatherings and navigated quiet corridors. She knew that the academy had eyes everywhere, holographic cameras, floating monitors, and students who acted as observers. Any misstep could draw attention, and she could feel the invisible weight of scrutiny pressing down. Kyle approached her cautiously one morning while she studied in the corner of the library. He had a sharp intellect, but there was something human-like in the way he observed situations. "I've noticed you," he said quietly, sitting across from her. "Your record. It's unusual. I think you're hiding something, intentionally or not." Lena glanced up, startled. "I'm not hiding," she said softly. "I just prefer to stay out of the way." Kyle smiled faintly. "That's exactly it. You hide in plain sight, but everyone can see there's more to you. I think we could help each other." She didn't respond immediately. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But Kale's approach was different. Curious, analytical, not judgmental. For the first time since her identity had been revealed, she felt a flicker of hope. Later that day, while reviewing the academy's archives, Lena discovered something strange. Her parents had left coded messages in her records, perhaps as a guide or a warning. The codes referenced an interstellar trial scheduled to test the academy's students. It was a competition designed to measure strategy, intelligence, and courage, but it also had political implications. Whoever excelled in this trial could influence decisions across multiple planets. The realization hit Lena hard. Her invisibility had not just been a shield. It had been a preparation. Her parents had anticipated that she would one day face scrutiny, and they had left her tools to navigate it. As the trial approached, Lena began to understand that staying invisible was no longer an option. She had to step forward, face the academy's challenges, and use the rare abilities that marked her as human. The whispers in the halls, the curious glances, and even Kale's subtle encouragement were all reminders that her life was about to change. She began practicing in secret, using the academy's empty halls to test her reflexes, her intelligence, and her capacity to handle challenges. The human mind, Lena discovered, was her greatest asset. In a school of aliens, strategy and adaptability often mattered more than raw power. By the end of the first part, Lena had accepted a truth she had once feared. Invisibility was an illusion. Being human made her vulnerable, yes, but it also gave her strengths that no alien could replicate. With Kale as a potential ally and her parents' codes as a guide, she was beginning to see a path forward, one where she could step into the light. Not as a shadow, but as a force to be reckoned with. The Academy of Celestia, with all its floating halls, shimmering lights, and endless diversity, had become more than a place of study. It was a testing ground, and Lena knew that surviving it would require courage, intelligence, and the courage to be seen. And Lena was ready to try.